Yuna stood by the window of her family's great house and watched the gardener work. He was human, a species most Valori considered beneath notice. He moved slowly through the flower beds, his hands gentle with the plants, his face calm and empty of expression. He had worked here for 5 years, and Yuna realized she did not even know his name. She had bigger problems than unnamed gardeners. Lord Tarak had come to her father's office 3 days ago. He was tall for a Valori, with sharp features and cold eyes that reminded Yuna of a predator. He commanded the Third Fleet and owned more planets than most families could count. He was powerful, cruel, and he wanted Yuna. "Your daughter would make a fine addition to my house," he had told her father. It was not a request. It was a statement of intent. Her father had no power to refuse. The family's trading business depended on routes that Tarek controlled. One word from him, and they would be ruined. One word, and Yuna would become property wearing the mask of a wife. She had seen what happened to Tarek's previous wives. The first one died in an accident. The second one went mad and was sent away to a facility. The third one simply vanished. No one asked questions. No one dared. Yuna was not going to be the fourth. "You are thinking too loudly," said a voice behind her. Yuna turned to find her grandmother Ciala standing in the doorway. The old woman was small and bent with age, but her eyes were sharp as ever. She had survived 3 wars, 2 plagues, and the death of everyone she had ever loved. Nothing frightened her anymore. "Grandmother, I do not know what to do," Yuna admitted. Ciala walked slowly into the room and sat down in her favorite chair. "There is a way," she said. "You will not like it. Tell me." Valori law is clear. A bonded female cannot be claimed by another. If you are already married, Tarek cannot touch you. The bond is sacred, unbreakable. Yuna shook her head. "Who would marry me quickly enough? Tarek has already filed his intent. I have 30 days. Any Valori man who agrees to marry me would face Tarek's anger. No one will risk that." "I did not say Valori," Ciala replied quietly. Yuna stared at her grandmother. Then she understood. Her eyes moved back to the window, to the gardener kneeling in the dirt. "You cannot be serious." "The law does not specify species," Ciala said. "A marriage is a marriage. The council would have to accept it. He is human. Our society will laugh at us. We will be disgraced. Disgrace fades. Death does not." Ciala's voice was hard. "I have buried too many children and grandchildren. I will not bury you." Yuna watched the gardener for a long time. He had finished with one flower bed and moved to the next. His movements were steady, patient. There was no wasted motion, no hurry. He worked like someone who had all the time in the world. "What is his name?" Yuna asked. "Dawan. He arrived 5 years ago, looking for work. He has never caused trouble. He keeps to himself. Does he have family?" "None that I know of. He is alone." Yuna closed her eyes. This was madness. Marrying a human gardener to escape a Valori lord. Her friends would mock her. Her enemies would use it against her. She would become a joke, a cautionary tale. But she would be alive. She would be free. "I will speak to him," she said. She found Dawan near the western wall, trimming a vine that had grown too wild. He looked up as she approached, and she saw his face clearly for the first time. He was neither ugly nor handsome by human standards, just ordinary. Brown hair, brown eyes, a face that would disappear in any crowd. He was perhaps 30 years old, though humans age differently than Valori. "I need to ask you something," Yuna said. Dawan set down his tools and waited. He did not speak. "Do you know who Lord Tarek is?" A small nod. "He wants to marry me. If he does, I will not survive long. My grandmother believes there is a way to stop him." Yuna forced herself to meet his eyes. I need a husband. The marriage would be legal, but not real. You would want for nothing. Money, a home, protection. I ask only that you give me your name. Dawan was silent for a long moment. His face showed nothing. Why me? He finally asked. His voice was quiet, rough from disuse. Because you are human. Because Tarek will not expect it. Because I have no other choice. She waited for him to refuse. She waited for disgust or confusion or greed. Instead, Dawan simply nodded. Okay, he said. That was all. One word. No questions about money or conditions or what would happen later. Just okay. The ceremony took place 3 days later in the small temple at the edge of the estate. Yuna's parents attended with shame in their eyes. Ciala watched with grim satisfaction. The priest performed the rites quickly, clearly uncomfortable with bonding a Valori noblewoman to a human servant. When it was done, Dohan bowed to Yuna once and returned to the gardens. Lord Tarek received the news that evening. His messengers reported that he destroyed his office in rage, breaking furniture and screaming threats. But there was nothing he could do. The law was clear. Yuna was bonded. That night, Yuna lay in her bed and listened to the silence of her home. Somewhere below, her human husband slept in the servants' quarters. She had saved herself through a legal trick and a stranger's kindness. She did not know that she had just changed the course of galactic history. She did not know what Dowan truly was, but she would learn. 3 months passed since the wedding, and Yuna found herself watching her husband more often than she wanted to admit. Dowan had not changed after the marriage. He still worked in the gardens every morning. He still ate his meals alone. He still spoke only when necessary, and even then, he used as few words as possible. The other servants had started calling him the ghost because he moved so quietly through the house. But Yuna had begun to notice small things. The garden had never looked more beautiful. Flowers that had refused to bloom for years suddenly burst with color. The old tree in the courtyard, which everyone thought was dying, now stood tall and healthy. Dowan had a gift for growing things, a patience that seemed almost unnatural. One evening, Yuna came down to the kitchen late at night, unable to sleep. She found Dowan there, cooking something over the stove. The smell was strange but pleasant. What is that? She asked. Food from Earth? He said without turning around. My home planet? Yuna sat down at the small table, curious despite herself. She had never eaten human food before. Most Valori considered it primitive, barely fit for consumption. Dowan placed a bowl in front of her. It was a soup of some kind, with vegetables and meat in a rich brown broth. Steam rose from the surface, carrying a smell that made her stomach growl. Try it, he said. She did. The taste was unlike anything she had experienced. It was warm and comforting, simple but satisfying. She ate the entire bowl without speaking. This is good, she admitted. Dowan nodded and returned to cleaning the kitchen. He did not seem to need praise or thanks. He simply did things because they needed to be done. Over the following weeks, Yuna found more excuses to spend time near her husband. She told herself it was curiosity, nothing more. But she noticed things that made her wonder. His hands were strange. They were the hands of a gardener, rough and calloused from work. But the calluses were in unusual places, patterns she did not recognize. When he gripped a tool, his fingers wrapped around it in a way that seemed too precise, too controlled. He moved differently than other humans she had seen. Most humans were clumsy by Valori standards, slow and awkward. But Dowan had a grace to him, a quiet efficiency that reminded her of dancers or fighters. He never wasted a step, never made an unnecessary motion. One afternoon, Yuna was walking through the garden when she tripped on a loose stone. She fell forward, certain she would hit the ground. Instead, she felt a hand catch her arm, steady and strong. Do-won had been 10 feet away a moment before. Now he stood beside her, his grip gentle but firm. "Careful," he said. "How did you move so fast?" She asked. He released her arm and stepped back. "I was close." He had not been close. She was certain of it. But his face showed nothing, and she did not push the question. That night, Yuna fell sick with a fever. It came on suddenly, as these things sometimes did with Valori. Her body burned, and her mind filled with nightmares. She thrashed in her bed, crying out for people who were not their dot when she finally woke. 3 days had passed. Her fever had broken, and Do-won sat in a chair beside her bed, dark circles under his eyes, watching over her. "You stayed," she whispered. "Yes." "The whole time?" "Yes." Yuna did not know what to say. She had expected nothing from this marriage. She had expected a legal arrangement, a shield against Tarek, nothing more. She had not expected kindness. "Thank you," she said. Do-won nodded once and stood to leave. At the door, he paused. "Rest," he said. "I will bring food later." After he left, Yuna lay in her bed and thought about the strange human she had married. He asked for nothing. He complained about nothing. He simply existed, quiet and steady, like a rock in a stream. She realized she felt safe. For the first time in years, since Tarek had first turned his cold eyes toward her family, she felt protected. Not by guards or laws or political games, but by the simple presence of a man who would sit by her bed for 3 days without sleeping. What she did not know was that Tarek had not given up far across the city. In his military compound, the Lord was planning. He had spies watching the estate. He knew about Do-won, about the marriage, about every small detail of Yuna's life. And he had found a solution. A human husband could be removed. Accidents happened all the time, especially to lesser species who wandered where they should not. Once Do-won was dead, Yuna would be a widow. The bond would be broken, and Tarek would be there to claim her. He set his plan in motion on the night of the Festival of Twin Moons, when the city's attention would be elsewhere and screams from a distant estate would go unheard. 30 of his best soldiers received their orders. Kill the human. Capture the woman. Leave no witnesses. They did not know what they were walking into. Neither did Yuna. Sleeping peacefully in her bed for the first time in months, trusting in the safety of her home, only Do-won sensed something wrong. He stood at his window in the servants' quarters, looking out at the darkness beyond the walls. His hand moved to an old wooden box beneath his bed, touching the lid but not opening it. Not yet, he told himself. Not yet, but he knew that soon the sword would sing again. The Festival of Twin Moons filled the city with light and music. Crowds danced in the streets. Fireworks painted the sky in colors that hurt to look at. Every guard, every soldier, every watchman had been called to the city center for the celebration. The estate stood almost empty. Yuna woke to the sound of glass breaking. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding. The house was dark. The servants should have lit the evening lamps by now. Something was wrong. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside her room. Heavy footsteps, the kind made by boots, not the soft shoes of her household staff. Yuna threw off her blankets and ran to the door. She opened it a crack and saw shadows moving at the end of the corridor. Tall figures in black armor, carrying weapons that gleamed in the moonlight. Soldiers. Tarek's soldiers. She closed the door silently and pressed her back against the wall. Her mind raced. The window was too high to jump. The balcony led nowhere. She was trapped. A scream rose from somewhere below. One of the servants. Then silence. Yuna forced herself to breathe. She needed to move, to hide, to find help. She grabbed a robe and slipped out of her room, moving in the opposite direction from the footsteps. The house had become a nightmare. Bodies lay in the hallways, servants who had tried to run or fight. Blood stained the polished floors. Yuna bit her lip to keep from crying out. These people had served her family for decades. Now they were gone. She made it to the great hall before they found her. 5 soldiers stepped out of the shadows, blocking every exit. Their armor bore Tarek's symbol, a red flame on black metal. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but Yuna could feel their eyes on her. "Lady Yuna," one of them said. His voice was almost polite. "Lord Tarek sends his regards. Please come with us peacefully, and if I refuse, then we will carry you. It makes no difference to us." More soldiers entered the hall behind her. 10, 15, 20. She was surrounded. "Where is my husband?" she asked. The lead soldier laughed. "The human? Some of our men are dealing with him now. Do not worry. It will be quick." Yuna's hand shook with rage and fear. She thought of Dawan, gentle Dawan who had never raised his voice, facing armed soldiers in the dark. Then she heard it. The sound came from somewhere deep in the house. It was not a scream. It was not a crash. It was something else entirely. A sound like wind passing through leaves, like water over stones. The soldiers heard it too. They turned toward the entrance, weapons raised. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Dawan walked through the doorway. He wore his simple gardener's clothes, dirty from work. His feet were bare. His hair was loose around his face. In his right hand, he carried a sword. Yuna had never seen a weapon like it. The blade was long and curved, made of metal that seemed to drink the light. Strange symbols were carved along its length, words in a language she did not recognize. It looked ancient, impossibly old, like something from a time before space travel and star empires. "Step away from her," Dawan said. His voice was different. Still quiet, still calm, but with an edge beneath it that made the air feel cold. The lead soldier laughed again, but the sound was uncertain. "You are one human with a primitive weapon. We are 30 trained warriors. Put down the sword, and we might let you die quickly." Dawan did not respond. He simply walked forward. What happened next would be spoken of for generations. Yuna saw it, but her mind could not process what her eyes witnessed. Dawan moved, and he was no longer where he had been. He was among the soldiers, between them, through them, his blade singing as it cut. Valori were faster than humans. This was a fact known across the galaxy. Valori soldiers trained from birth, honing their reflexes until they could strike faster than most species could see. They could not see Dawan. Bodies fell. Weapons clattered to the ground. Soldiers who had never known fear screamed and ran for the doors. Dawan followed them, patient and precise, his blade moving in patterns that looked like dance dot in 11 seconds. 15 soldiers lay dead on the floor of the great hall. The remaining soldiers had retreated to the walls, their weapons shaking in their hands. One of them, an older man with gray in his hair, dropped to his knees. "Sun Warrior," he whispered. "Death Dancer. You are supposed to be extinct." Dawan stopped. He stood in the center of the hall, surrounded by the fallen, his blade dripping red. His eyes found Yuna, and for just a moment, she saw something in them. Sadness, regret, an ancient, terrible weariness. Then he turned back to the survivors. "Leave," he said. "Tell your master what you saw. Tell him that this woman is under my protection. Tell him that if he comes for her again, I will come for him." The soldiers ran. They did not look back. Silence filled the hall. Yuna stood frozen, staring at the man she had married. The gentle gardener. The silent husband. The one who had cooked her soup and sat by her bed when she was sick. He knelt beside one of the fallen servants. an old man who had worked in the kitchens since before Yuna was born. With gentle hands, Dawan closed the man's eyes. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I should have acted sooner. What are you?" Yuna asked. Dawan stood. He looked at his sword, at the blood that stained his simple clothes, at the bodies that surrounded him. "Something I hope to never be again," he answered. He walked past her without another word, carrying his blade out into the night. I watched him go. Her hands had stopped shaking. Her fear had faded, replaced by something else. Wonder, perhaps. Or the beginning of understanding that her husband was not what he seemed. He had never been what he seemed, and she needed to know the truth. Yuna found him in the garden at dawn. Dawan sat beneath the old tree he had saved from death, the same tree that had once seemed ready to fall. His sword lay across his knees, cleaned of blood, but still carrying the weight of what it had done. He looked smaller somehow, like a man who had set down a heavy burden only to pick up a heavier one. The night had been chaos. Authorities had come and gone. Bodies had been removed. Statements had been taken. The news had spread across the city like fire. A human had killed 15 Valori elite soldiers in seconds. Impossible. Unbelievable. And yet the evidence was undeniable. Yuna walked across the grass and sat down beside her husband. He did not look at her. "The servants are asking about you," she said. "The ones who survived. They want to thank you. I do not need thanks. They are going to give them anyway." Silence stretched between them. Birds sang in the trees. The morning sun painted the flowers in gold. "You owe me an explanation," Yuna said finally. "I married a gardener. I woke up married to something else." Dawan was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was distant, like a man telling a story about someone else's life. "On Earth, long ago, there was an order of warriors. We called ourselves many names across the centuries. Sword Saints. Shadow Walkers. The last name, the one we carried into the stars, was Soulblade." He touched the weapon in his lap. "We trained from the age of 5. Our bodies were shaped by discipline and pain. We learned to move faster than the eye could follow, to strike before an enemy knew we were there. We became weapons in human form." "Why?" Yuna asked. "Because humanity needed us." Dawan's voice grew hard. "When humans first reached the stars, we were children among giants. Every species was stronger, faster, more advanced. They saw us as prey. They conquered our colonies, enslaved our people, treated us as animals." He finally looked at her. "The Soul Blades were our answer. We could not fight armies. We could not win wars. But we could make the cost of hurting humanity too high to bear. A governor who abused human workers would die in his sleep. A general who ordered massacres would vanish without a trace. One by one, we taught the galaxy to fear us." Yuna thought of the soldiers in the Great Hall, how they had fallen like leaves before Dawan's blade. "The gray-haired soldier called you Death Dancer. He said you were extinct. That is what the galaxy believes." A bitter smile crossed Dawan's face. "When humanity finally won its freedom, the Council demanded our destruction. They said we were too dangerous to exist. Officially, we agreed. The Soul Blades disbanded. We disappeared. But you did not actually stop existing. We went underground, scattered across the stars. Some of us became farmers, merchants, servants. We took the lowest jobs, the ones no one noticed. We hid in plain sight, watching, waiting. Waiting for what? For when we would be needed again." Dawan's hands tightened on his sword. "Humanity is safe now. We have our own worlds, our own fleets. We do not need hidden warriors anymore. I thought I could finally rest. I thought I could put down my blade and live as something other than a weapon." His voice broke slightly. "I was wrong." Yuna watched his face, seeing the pain there. What happened to you? Before you came here? The question hung in the air. Do-Wan closed his eyes. I had a student, he said. A girl, 12 years old. She had the gift, the potential to become one of the greatest soul blades in history. I trained her for 3 years. I taught her everything I knew. Tears formed at the corners of his eyes. There was a man, a powerful man who wanted to send a message to humanity. He found us. He came with an army. I fought them. I killed many. But there were too many, and I was too slow. And when it was over, he could not finish the sentence. Yuna understood. She did not need the words. I failed her, Do-Wan whispered. I was supposed to protect her, and I failed. After that, I could not hold a sword without seeing her face. I could not fight without remembering. I came here because it was far away, because no one knew me, because I wanted to grow flowers and forget that I had ever been a weapon. He opened his eyes and looked at Yuna. Then you came to me with your proposal. A marriage of convenience. Protection for you. Anonymity for me. I thought I could help you without becoming what I used to be. But Tarek forced your hand. Yes. Do-Wan stood, sheathing his sword in one smooth motion. Now the secret is out. Soon, everyone will know what I am. Other enemies will come. More soldiers, more assassins. The galaxy does not forgive what it fears. Yuna stood as well. She reached out and took his hand. His skin was rough with calluses, warm from the morning sun. Then we will face them together, she said. Do-Wan stared at her. You do not understand. Being near me is dangerous. I cannot protect you from everything. Tarek will not stop. He will send more men, better men. He will burn this entire estate to the ground if that is what it takes. I know. You should leave. Find somewhere safe. Forget you ever knew me. Yuna smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was strength in it. You stayed by my bed for 3 days when I was sick. You cooked me soup from your home planet. You killed 15 men to keep me safe. Do you really think I am going to abandon you now? For the first time since she had known him, Do-Wan looked surprised. His mouth opened, but no words came out. You are not alone anymore, Yuna said. Whatever comes, we face it together. That is what marriage means. She squeezed his hand, and after a long moment, he squeezed back. Above them, the old tree swayed in the breeze, its branches full of new leaves. Life continued, stubborn and beautiful, in defiance of all the death and pain that had come before. And somewhere across the city, Lord Tarek received word of what had happened. His face went pale with rage. A human had made a fool of him. A human had destroyed his soldiers. A human had dared to challenge his power. He reached for his communicator and made a call to the High Council. If he could not have Yuna through politics or assassination, he would use the one weapon no human could defeat, the law itself. The summons arrived on a cold morning, carried by a messenger in the formal robes of the High Council. Yuna read it twice, her face growing pale. The right of challenge, she said. He invoked the right of challenge. Do-Wan stood by the window, watching the messenger leave. Explain. It is an old law, ancient. When a bond is disputed, either party can demand a duel. The winner takes the bonded person. The loser forfeits all claims. Yuna set down the paper with shaking hands. It has not been used in centuries. Most people have forgotten it exists. Tarek remembered. Tarek has lawyers who dig through old books looking for advantages. Yuna turned to face her husband. This is a trap. He cannot defeat you in a fair fight, so he will cheat. Poison on his blade, hidden soldiers, something. The duel is before the High Council. Thousands will watch. Cheating would destroy his reputation. He does not care about reputation. He cares about winning. Dohan was silent for a moment. Then he said, "If I refuse, the law automatically dissolves our marriage. I become his property." Yuna's voice cracked. "There is no escape this time. He has found a way around everything. Then I will not refuse." Yuna crossed the room and grabbed his arm. "You do not understand. Tarek is not like the soldiers you killed. He is a trained warrior, one of the best in the Empire. He has killed hundreds in combat. He has never lost a duel." Doan looked at her. His eyes were calm, steady. "Neither have I." The arena was an enormous dot built in the heart of the capital. It could hold 50,000 spectators. Today, it held more. People filled every seat, crowded every walkway, pressed against every barrier. Screens throughout the city showed the empty floor where the duel would take place. The entire sector was watching. Yuna sat in the section reserved for bondholders, surrounded by guards who were there to protect her, but were really there to prevent her from leaving. Grandmother Ciala sat beside her, ancient and unafraid. "He will win," Ciala said quietly. "How can you be sure?" "I cannot, but I have faith." The crowd fell silent as Lord Tarek entered the arena. He wore ceremonial armor that cost more than most planets. Gold and silver plates covered every inch of his body, decorated with jewels and ancient symbols. His blade was longer than he was tall, a weapon designed to showcase strength and reach. He walked like a king, waving to the crowd, drinking in their cheers. Then Dohan entered. He wore simple clothes, the same kind he had worn in the garden. No armor, no decoration. His feet were bare against the cold stone floor. In his hand, he carried his curved blade, ancient and plain compared to Tarek's gleaming weapon. The crowd murmured. Some laughed. A human in gardener's clothes facing a Valori lord in battle armor. It should have been a joke, but the soldiers who had survived that night in the Great Hall did not laugh. They sat in the stands, faces pale, unable to look away. Tarek stopped in the center of the arena and smiled. "You actually came. I thought you might run." Dohan said nothing. "I am going to enjoy this," Tarek continued. "When I kill you, I will make Yuna watch the recording every day. I will remind her of what happens to those who defy me." Still, Dohan said nothing. Tarek's smile faltered. He had expected fear, anger, some reaction. This silence was unsettling. "Do you have any last words, human?" Dohan shifted his grip on his sword. His bare feet found their position on the stone. "One," he said. The arena fell completely silent. High above, the judge raised his hand. "The right of challenge has been invoked. The duel will continue until one combatant yields or dies. May honor guide your blades." His hand dropped. Tarek charged with a roar, his massive sword sweeping in an arc that could have cut through a ship's hull. He was fast for a Valori, impossibly fast. Moving with the skill of a lifetime of training. He hit nothing but air. Doan was no longer where he had been standing. He had moved, a single step to the side, so small that most of the crowd missed it entirely. Tarek's blade passed within inches of his face. The Lord spun, striking again. Another miss. Another step. Dohan flowed around the attacks like water around stone, never moving more than necessary, never wasting energy. "Stand still and fight!" Tarek screamed. Dohan stopped. He stood perfectly motionless in the center of the arena, his sword lowered, his eyes fixed on Tarek. The crowd held its breath. Tarek raised his weapon for a killing. Blowout. Doan moved. The crowd saw nothing. One moment, Tarek was bringing down his sword. The next moment, Doan stood behind him, blade extended in the follow-through of a strike. 3 seconds had passed. Tarek's sword clattered to the ground. His hands went to his chest, where a thin line of red had appeared across his armor. The cut was shallow, precise. A warning, not a killing blow. Yield, Dowan said quietly. Tarek fell to his knees. His eyes were wide with terror. He had not seen the strike. He had not felt it until it was over. In 3 seconds, a human gardener had proven that everything the galaxy believed about humanity was a lie. I yield, Tarek whispered. I yield. The crowd erupted. Dowan sheathed his sword and turned away from his fallen opponent. He walked across the arena floor toward the section where Yuna sat. Guards scrambled out of his path. No one tried to stop him. He climbed the stairs to her box and stood before her. His face was calm, but his eyes held a question. Yuna rose from her seat. She walked past the guards, past her grandmother, past all the watching eyes of the galaxy. She stopped in front of her husband and took his hand. Let us go home, she said. They walked out of the arena together, leaving Lord Tarek on his knees in the dust. The whispers started before they reached the gates. They spread through the crowd, through the city, through the entire sector. A human had defeated a Valori champion. The Soul Blades were not extinct. Humanity was not the weak species the galaxy had believed in servants' quarters and garden sheds across 1,000 worlds. Other quiet humans heard the news and smiled. Gardeners, cooks, cleaners, farmers. The forgotten ones. The invisible ones. The ones who had been waiting for centuries. Years later, Yuna and Dowan would tell this story to their children. Half human, half Valori, the first of their kind. They would explain that their father had once been a weapon, but had chosen to become something else. They would say that strength was not about killing, but about knowing when not to kill. And in the garden behind their house, the old tree still stood, its branches reaching toward the sky, alive and growing against all odds, just like humanity itself.